When you think of F. Scott Fitzgerald's classic novel, The Great Gatsby, you probably think of a tragic love story. But it's so much more than that. It's actually a diagnosis, written almost 100 years ago for a promise that was already dying.
And this is the really dangerous question Fitzgerald forces us to look at. He takes the core belief of America, that ladder of opportunity, and he asks, hey, was this thing ever really there for everyone? It's a huge challenge to a foundational idea, and he uses whole novel to make his case.
So yeah, that's exactly what we're doing here. Think of this as an autopsy. But the body on the table, it's not a person. It's the American dream itself. And through the story of J. Gatsby, Fitzgerald is our lead pathologist, and he's about to show us exactly how and why it died. Okay, so before we can really get into the tragedy, we have to properly identify the victim. What was the American dream supposed to be? In its perfect, healthy state. What was this promise that absolutely captivated an entire nation?
Well, it promised that here in America, unlike the old, stuffy class systems of Europe, your birth didn't seal your fate. You could totally reinvent yourself. You could climb that social ladder, and you could succeed just based on your own hard work and talent. It was a beautiful idea, right? A powerful one, the foundational myth of a country.
Now, to conduct our autopsy, we need a prime specimen. And Fitzgerald, he gives us the perfect one in J. Gatsby, a guy who, on the surface, looks like the absolute poster child for the American dream.
I mean, just look at his journey. It's the dream, boiled down to 4 easy steps. He starts out with nothing, literally, as James Gatz. He completely reinvents himself into the cool, mysterious, and super rich J. Gatsby and builds an empire from scratch. That huge mansion of his, it's not just a house. It's a monument to his success. Basically a giant neon sign screaming, "I made it."
But here's where Fitzgerald picks up the scalpel. If Gatsby did everything right, if he checked every single box and won the game by the rules of the dream, why is he so deeply, profoundly unhappy? Well, it's because it turns out the money, that was never the real prize. The real prize was something that all his money couldn't buy. And this brings us to the first fatal wound that Fitzgerald points out. There's this invisible barrier in America, an unbreachable wall that Gatsby's fortune just can't seem to break through. And that wall is social class. You see, Gatsby's true obsession is Daisy Buchanan. But she's not just a person to him. She's an idea. She represents a world of inherited status, of old money. She is the ultimate prize, locked away at the very top of a social pyramid that wasn't even supposed to exist in America. Fitzgerald brilliantly shows us this divide using geography. Gatsby lives in West Egg, which is the land of new money. It's all about ambition and flashy, showy wealth. It's a performance. But Daisy, she lives across the bay in East Egg. That's a world of quiet, effortless, inherited power. Gatsby has to constantly prove he belongs. Daisy's husband Tom was just born into it. No effort required.
And the green light at the end of Daisy's dock? That's the perfect symbol for this whole thing. It represents all of Gatsby's hope, the future, the dream itself. But here's the catch. Its power is in its distance. The second he gets close to Daisy, the light kind of loses its magic. Fitzgerald is telling us that maybe the dream can only survive as an illusion, not as something you can actually grab.
But the problem wasn't just this external class system he couldn't break into. Fitzgerald shows us there was also an internal disease, a moral corruption that had infected everyone, and it was rotting the dream from the inside out.
The 1920s, the Jazz Age, was just this time of incredible over-the-top excess. Gatsby's parties are the perfect example. But Fitzgerald shows us that just beneath all that champagne and glitter is this deep, moral emptiness. It's a fire of carelessness just burning through everything and everyone.
This line from the book, man, it just nails the diagnosis. People like Tom and Daisy Buchanan, they are completely insulated by their wealth. They can cause horrible damage. They can even kill someone and face absolutely no consequences. They just retreat back into their vast money and let somebody else clean up their mess.
So here's the crucial point. The American dream was supposed to be about virtue, hard work and integrity. But by the time of the Jazz Age, it had been totally corrupted. The goal wasn't to be a good person anymore, it was just to be a rich person, and it didn't matter how you got there. And once money completely replaces morality, the whole system just collapses. And so we arrive at the final verdict. We've examined the body, we've identified the wounds, and we've diagnosed the disease. It's time to declare the cause of death by looking at Gatsby's final, tragic moments. For a guy whose house was always filled with hundreds of people, this is just the most devastating detail. When he dies, nobody comes. Not a soul. All those crowds who drank his booze and enjoyed his parties, they just vanish. He is completely, utterly alone, stripped of all the glamour he worked so hard to build. And this is the ultimate tragedy. Gatsby believed, with every single fiber of his being, in the promise of the American dream, that he could just erase his past and win the future he wanted. But the rigid, class-based system he was trying to break into, it never believed in him. To them, he was always going to be an outsider. This is the novel's famous last line, and it's basically the final nail in the coffin. Fitzgerald is saying that we can try with all our might to row toward the future, toward that green light, but the powerful currents of our past, of class, of history, they're always pulling us back. The struggle is pointless.
So, Fitzgerald's autopsy, which he finished all the way back in 1925, leaves us with this really haunting question for today. Has anything actually changed? Or are we all still just chasing a distant, glittering promise that was maybe designed to stay forever just out of reach? What do you think?